Hey guys, welcome back. I am very happy you are here today. Find a quiet place, sit comfortably, take a slow breath, and let us travel together into the story of rock music. Today we will follow a sound. It is not a quiet sound. It is not a soft sound. It is a sound with a strong beat. It is a sound with guitars. It is a sound that made people move their feet. It is a sound that made young people open their eyes and say, "This music is ours." This is the true story of the origin of rock music. It is a story about many people. It is a story about roads, trains, radios, churches, small clubs, and busy cities. It is a story about music from many hearts becoming one new sound. Our story begins before rock had a name. Long before famous rock bands, long before big concerts, long before electric guitars filled stadiums. The story begins in the southern United States. It begins with people singing while they worked. It begins with people singing when life was hard. It begins with blues music. Blues music was honest music. It came from deep feelings. A blues singer could sing about sadness. A blues singer could sing about work. A blues singer could sing about love. A blues singer could sing about hope. The words were simple, but the feeling was strong. Many blues songs used a guitar. Sometimes the guitar sounded like a human voice. It cried, it answered. It repeated small musical lines again and again. The singer sang one line, then the guitar answered. It was like a conversation between a person and an instrument. In small towns and country places, people listened to this music at home. They listened in small bars. They listened at parties. The music was not rich. It was not fancy, but it was alive. It had a strong heart. At the same time, another sound was growing. This sound came from churches. It was gospel music. Gospel music was full of voices. People clapped their hands. People sang together. The music had power. It had joy. It had a deep feeling of hope. In gospel music, one voice often called out. Then the group answered. The sound moved like a wave. It went up. It came down. It filled the room. Later, rock singers would use this same kind of power. They would sing with strong voices. They would sing like they wanted the whole world to hear them. There was also country music. Country music came from farms, mountains, and small towns. It used guitars, fiddles, and simple stories. A country song could tell a story about home. It could tell a story about love. It could tell a story about leaving one place and going to another. So before rock music was born, many musical rivers were already moving. Blues was one river. Gospel was one river. Country was one river. Jazz and swing were also rivers. Rhythm and blues was another strong river. Slowly, these rivers moved closer and closer together. Now imagine America in the 1940s. The world was changing. Many people were moving from the countryside to the cities. They were looking for work. They were looking for better lives. They brought their music with them. They brought their songs, their guitars, their church voices, and their memories. In cities like Chicago, Memphis, New Orleans, and Detroit, the music changed. The streets were louder than the countryside. The clubs were louder too. Musicians needed to be heard. So guitars became electric. The sound became bigger. The beat became stronger. This was very important. An electric guitar could speak with a sharp voice. It could sing. It could shout. It could cut through the noise of a room. When people heard it, they felt something new. The music did not just stay in the ears. It moved into the body. Drums became very important too. The drummer gave the music a strong backbeat. A backbeat is a beat that makes people want to clap. It makes people want to dance. It is simple. It is steady. It says, move, move, move. In rhythm and blues, this beat became exciting. The piano played fast. The saxophone shouted. The guitar answered. The singer sang with energy. People danced close to the stage. The room became hot. The music became louder. Something new was coming. But at first, this music was not called rock and roll. Many people called it rhythm and blues. Some radio stations played it for black listeners. Many white radio stations did not play it much. America was divided in many ways at that time. Music also lived behind walls. But music is very good at crossing walls. A song can travel where people cannot. A beat can move from one room to another. A voice can reach a heart that is far away. And soon, young people from many backgrounds began to hear this exciting sound. One important person in this story was a radio man named Alan Freed. He worked in Cleveland, Ohio. In the early 1950s, he began to play rhythm and blues records on the radio. He used the words rock and roll for this new, exciting sound. Many young listeners loved it. Alan Freed did not create the music by himself. No one person created rock music. That is very important to remember. Rock music was born from many artists and many traditions. But Alan Freed helped give the music a name. And a name can help a sound travel faster. Soon, the words rock and roll were everywhere. Teenagers said them. Radio stations said them. Record companies said them. Parents heard them too. Some parents were worried. They thought the music was too loud. They thought young people were dancing too much. But the young people loved it even more. Now we must meet one very special woman. Her name was Sister Rosetta Tharpe. She was a gospel singer, but she played electric guitar with great power. She could make the guitar ring and jump. She sang with joy. She sang with fire. Many later rock musicians listened to her and learned from her. Sister Rosetta stood on stage with her guitar. She smiled. She sang. Then her fingers moved fast across the strings. The guitar sounded bright and strong. It was church music, but it also sounded like the future. It sounded like rock before rock had fully arrived. Many people now call her one of the mothers of rock and roll. This is a beautiful way to remember her. Because rock music did not begin only with young men in shiny jackets. It also began with powerful women. It began in churches. It began with voices of faith, feeling, and joy. Another important sound came from New Orleans. New Orleans was a city of music. Jazz lived there. Blues lived there. Street music lived there. In that city, a singer and piano player named Fats Domino became famous. His music was warm. His piano rolled like water. His voice was friendly and smooth. Fats Domino played rhythm and blues with a happy feel. His songs had a strong beat. People could dance to them. He showed that this new music could be joyful. It could be simple. It could be easy to love. Many people around the country listened to him. Then came Chuck Berry. Chuck Berry helped shape the sound of rock and roll guitar. He played clear, sharp guitar lines. He wrote songs about cars, school, music, and young people. His songs felt fast. They felt clever. They felt like a road opening in front of you. Chuck Berry showed that rock and roll could tell the story of teenage life, not the life of kings, not the life of old heroes, but the life of young people with dreams, young people with radios, young people with school days, young people who wanted freedom. There was also little Richard. His voice was like lightning. He played piano with great energy. He sang in a way people could never forget. His music was wild, bright, and full of life. When people heard him, they could not sit still. Little Richard showed that rock and roll could be full of color. It could be funny. It could be bold. It could be free. His songs helped make rock and roll exciting all over the world. Then we come to Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis was another important city in the story of rock. It sat near the Mississippi River. Many kinds of music met there. Blues, country, gospel, and rhythm and blues all lived near each other. The city was like a musical crossroads. In Memphis, there was a small recording studio called Sun Studio. A man named Sam Phillips worked there. He recorded many local musicians. He loved strong, honest music. He wanted to capture the sound of real people. He wanted music with feeling. One day, a young man named Elvis Presley came into the studio. Elvis loved many kinds of music. He loved gospel. He loved blues. He loved country. He had listened to black artists and white artists. His voice carried all these sounds together. Elvis did not invent rock and roll, but he helped bring it to a very large audience. When he sang, many young people listened. When he moved on stage, many young people watched. His music was a mix of country feeling and rhythm and blues energy. It sounded new to many ears. At almost the same time, Bill Haley and his Comets made rock and roll famous with a song that many people danced to. The song had a big beat. It was simple and exciting. Young people played it again and again. It helped rock and roll enter popular culture in a big way. By the middle of the 1950s, rock and roll was no longer a small sound in small rooms. It was on the radio. It was in movies. It was in record stores. It was in school dances. It was in the bedrooms of teenagers who listened quietly at night. Imagine a teenager in 1956. Maybe the teenager is sitting beside a small radio. The room is dark. The house is quiet. The parents are sleeping. Then the radio plays a rock and roll song. The guitar starts. The drums begin. The voice comes in, and the teenager feels awake. This music said something simple. You are young. You are alive. You can move. You can dream. You can have your own sound. That is why rock and roll became so powerful. It was not only music. It was a feeling. It was a sign that young people had their own world, their own clothes, their own dances, their own words, their own heroes. But the story was not always easy. Some adults were afraid of rock and roll. Some radio stations did not want to play certain songs. Some people did not like that black and white young people were listening to the same music. They did not like that music was bringing people together. But rock and roll kept moving. It moved because the beat was strong. It moved because the songs were good. It moved because young people wanted it. And when young people love a sound, it is very hard to stop that sound. The records traveled from city to city. A song made in Memphis could be heard in New York. A song made in New Orleans could be heard in California. A song made in Chicago could cross the ocean. Rock and roll began to travel around the world. Across the ocean, young people in Britain were listening too. They heard American blues. They heard Chuck Berry. They heard Little Richard. They heard Elvis Presley. They learned the songs. They bought guitars. They formed small bands. Later, some of these young British musicians became famous around the world. Groups like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones helped turn rock and roll into rock music. The sound changed again. It became bigger. It became more creative. It became the music of a new generation. But even when rock changed, its roots stayed alive. The blues was still there. Gospel power was still there. Country storytelling was still there. Rhythm and blues energy was still there. The first rivers were still flowing inside the new music. This is why the origin of rock music is so interesting. It is not one simple story. It is not one person. It is not one city. It is not one day. It is many people, many places, and many sounds meeting at the right time. Rock music was born when old sounds became new. It was born when guitars became louder. It was born when radios carried songs into homes. It was born when young people wanted music that felt like their lives. It was born when different traditions met and made something fresh. And this is also why rock music feels so human. It carries sadness from the blues. It carries joy from gospel. It carries stories from country. It carries movement from rhythm and blues. It carries freedom from young hearts. When we listen to early rock and roll today, the recordings may sound simple. The drums may not be very loud. The guitars may not sound like modern guitars. The voices may sound old. But inside those songs, there is a spark, a small fire, a beginning. That small fire became very large. It became rock bands. It became concerts. It became electric guitars on huge stages. It became songs that people sing for many years. It became a language that people around the world understand. And maybe that is the most beautiful part of the story. Rock music began from many different people. Some were famous, some were forgotten, some sang in churches, some played in small clubs, some recorded in tiny studios, some drove all night from town to town. They did not always know they were making history. They were just making music. They were trying to be heard. They were trying to make people dance. They were trying to tell the truth of their hearts. Then the world listened. The world moved. The world changed a little. So the next time you hear a rock song, listen carefully. Behind the guitar, you may hear the blues. Behind the strong voice, you may hear gospel. Behind the story, you may hear country music. Behind the beat, you may hear rhythm and blues. Behind all of it, you may hear people searching for freedom. Rock music began as a meeting place, a place where many sounds came together, a place where young people found energy, a place where old traditions became new, a place where a simple beat could open a door. And that door is still open today. Thank you for listening, my friends. I hope this story helped you enjoy English in a calm and easy way. You listened to a true story about music, history, and change. That is wonderful work. You are learning step by step, word by word, story by story. Tell me what story you would like to hear next. Maybe a story about jazz. Maybe a story about the guitar. Maybe a story about a famous singer. If this story helped you, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us make more peaceful English stories for you. Thank you for being here, and keep enjoying your English journey.